folks on the environmental side saying, oh, we can't build any more dams, and folks on the conservative side of the argument saying we can only build dams and we can't do anything for the environment. And of course, I've always said, well, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can have a healthy and wonderful environment. I think we can also make some targeted investments in more water storage, right?
Hey everybody, thanks for dialing in. This is the latest episode of Politics and Risk with your government affairs team here at the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers. Blaire, so you're our lead Republican lobbyist. You're closer to this than we are. Tell us the latest on the government shutdown stuff.
Look, I don't know if Republicans will give on they want to vote on a clean CR. They have voted on a clean CR multiple times. They have voted on a Democrat version of a CR, of a continuing resolution. And it just neither can get passed in the Senate. And so the House, those Republicans who feel like they have done what they needed to do, that's why they are not here in DC. And as someone who has worked on the Hill, kind of been a student of politics, this is so frustrating. No one wins in a government shutdown. I don't care what party you are. And it is, at the beginning of this, I thought it would be 2 weeks. And now we're looking at it longer. And so I just don't know if no side is willing to give what happens.
It is becoming increasingly clear that both sides are digging in, and I think it's largely driven by poll numbers on the Democratic side, and then I think on the Republican side, it's just not going to give, because it sounds like they are on the position of look, we will negotiate these subsidies, but now is not the time. Let's just do a short-term CR, and sounds like Johnson's giving them a lot of, as far as he can go with giving commitments that it will be considered, but knowing full well that his caucus has never voted for anything that would strengthen the ACA.
Well, too, I think we have to think about Democrats not wanting and not trusting Republicans ever since last year, when there was a bipartisan continuing resolution that was supposed to be passed, and a tweet by Elon Musk erased that. So I think we have to think about the Democrats not feeling like they can trust their counterparts, unfortunately, because they've been burned before. So I do think that plays a role in this shutdown as well.
Oh, I think both sides were burned long before a year ago. The House can only pass a clean CR. So I don't know if no side is willing to give. I don't know where we go from there. And it's hard to get business done as usual when the government isn't being funded.
I think it's interesting that Thune is considering the process of doing a slow reopening of the government by actually passing appropriations bills.
They can do that.
One agency by another, if the House is willing to do that, and he really only needs 5 Democrats to join now. He's already got 2, with Fetterman and Catherine Cortez Masto saying reopen, reopen, reopen. So you can see them potentially chiseling away those numbers. But the more painful it gets for the people, the more difficult it's going to be for both sides of the aisle to stick to their positions. And we do care about the subsidies. It's not our number one priority. Our members are, as you all know, in the commercial space, but the subsidies, a strong, stable market is good for the commercial markets. And the more unstable it is over there, cost shifting is a real thing. And all the data shows that folks on the ACA purchasing on the exchanges, their premiums will double should these subsidies expire. And it is worth noting, and a point of clarification, that we are speaking specifically of the enhanced ACA subsidies that were included in the American Rescue Plan in 2021, not the original ACA subsidies. So just the enhanced subsidies that will expire and cause the chaos. I was saying a while ago that this should be a slow legislative season after the big beautiful bill, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Obviously the shutdown politics will be driving a lot of it, and then next year it's going to be all midterm elections. But that's going to be driving a lot of funding battles also.
We always say we can always fall back on government funding being an issue we have to worry about. Something that we're looking at for next year, because the reauthorization ends December 2027, but it really needs to be done a year ahead of time, and that's TRIA, the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, or Terrorism Risk Insurance Program. And so we're meeting, we're starting those meetings, starting it with policyholder coalitions, with our colleagues on the carrier side. What does that education look like? Because it hasn't It's been this most recent reauthorization was a long one. And I think it's the latest kind of statistic I have is that 80% of Congress has not voted on TRIA before. And so, the worst spot for us to be in is a member of Congress not voting for it because they don't think we need it. And so we have to figure out what does that kind of collective education look like? How do we divide and conquer 535 members of Congress? So that's something to look forward to that has nothing to do with government funding.
That's right. And we will be advocating for a clean reauthorization with zero changes. I think that's very optimistic that we would get that at this point, because to your point, they're just not familiar with the program, and everyone kind of wants to have their stamp on something big like this. But it is kind of a sexy issue. When I talk to people, if they don't know anything about insurance, I talk about terrorism risk insurance, and they're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. All right, and we're really excited to hear the conversation between Audra Jackson and Congressman Adam Gray. Audra, you want to tell us a little bit about the congressman?
Yeah, we had a great conversation. Adam Gray represents California's 13th Congressional District. He's not new to politics, but new to Congress. So we had a great conversation talking about his work with the Blue Dog Coalition, what made him get involved in public service, his thoughts about the government shutdown. We also talked about the importance of extending the enhanced ACA credits, as well as so many people in his district rely on those. And we had a good conversation, so let's hear it. Welcome, Congressman Gray. My name is Audra Jackson. You are on our Leaders Edge podcast. This is actually the first time I'm interviewing a member of Congress for our podcast, so I'm so glad you're here with me. I want to start by just asking what made you go into public service. You were in the California State Assembly and now in Congress. What was your motivating factor for that?
I grew up in a family that was very involved in our community. And what I mean by that is my mom would go down to city council meetings and go to the board of supervisors and participate, in governing our community, right? And working on things like I remember being down with my mom and the community trying to get curbside recycling because our community didn't have recycling and a lot of other communities in California did. And so a bunch of people went down there and did. I remember going with my mom to have people sign petitions to rename one of the main streets in Merced, Martin Luther King Street. And so, just community activity stuff, going with my dad, related to agriculture issues. And of course, he ran a small, feed store and dairy supply company and engaging on those things. So I was raised, in a family where participating in your community what was a value, right? It was, and that was imparted upon me, at a very young age. And later in life, I got the opportunity to work with the agricultural chair in the state legislature on ag and water issues and things that, I was passionate about. And that just led to a lot of opportunities that ultimately led me, to have the honor of serving in the United States Congress, here this last 10 months.
Yeah. That is very cool. I will say my background is very similar. My dad was a precinct judge for 25 years. So politics and really, like you said, just community involvement is at the heart of what you do and who you are. So that's so good to hear. Going more into community, can you tell me about your district? I know you represent the 13th Congressional District of California.
Well, I think the most important thing to know about my district is it's part of the largest agricultural valley in the world, right? Here in California, we produce 2/3 of the fresh fruit and vegetables that this country consumes. We produce in my district and the surrounding areas, 90% of the world's pistachios and almonds and so many incredible products. Well, we, as I told you earlier, I grew up in the dairy industry, and my family was involved in selling dairy equipment, installing, maintenance, and that. Yeah, but we have a huge dairy industry here in California, and cheese and milk and all kinds of wonderful things. So this is an incredible breadbasket of the world that we have here, and I get to represent a good portion of that, and take a lot of pride, right, in what role we play in our country and making sure that everybody has high quality, affordable food, in every community. It's funny, I'll be in Washington, D.C., and I'll go to the grocery store, and And of course, some of the grocery stores will put, where these fruits and vegetable things were growing. And a lot of it is in my district. I'm in a grocery store in downtown DC, and you'll see so many products, right, that have come across the country. So very proud of that. And obviously, it's what I grew up around, and what so many people here in my community have grown up around and participated in throughout their lives.
Yeah, that is very cool. So I used to work in the cloakroom, and so one of the California members brought us California almonds. So that was our snack in addition to peanuts we would give to members of Congress. So I know all about the California almonds. I want to go change gears a little bit and talk about where we are today. It's day 9 of the lapse of federal funding, also known as the government shutdown. So, tell me how this is impacting your district and constituents and where you are with the whole conversation.
Well, I'm concerned, right? And it's impacting people in an adverse way. I mean, people deserve, I used to say all the time in the campaign, and say, my district works hard, right? People, our farm workers, farmers, truck drivers are involved in food production, involved in carpenters and plumbers and electricians, and people that really work hard, and they deserve a government that works hard for them, right? And I think the fact that Congress hasn't been able to pass a budget in I don't know how long. I mean, I think it's been years now.
Yeah.
Right. And I say that because I think so many Americans are unaware that, they're not following every day what Congress is doing. And what I think is important for people to understand is this current government shutdown is not the only problem. It's part of a much larger problem, which is that we haven't been able to actually pass, appropriations and budgets and agree on things in years. And let's drill down on why that is, right? Because this is the other thing I think it's important, for folks to understand, is that, the U.S. Senate, because of the filibuster, right? Which in a sense, the filibuster was designed to protect the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, it made sure that the entire U.S. Senate is structured so that every state has some equal footing with the others, right? Even if you're a small state, right? Each state gets 2 U.S. senators, right? It's not by population. And conversely, what the filibuster forces is it says, if you can't get 60 votes in the Senate, you have to work with the other party.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point. And that was very intentional, I think, in the way it was designed. And I think it's a good thing because you want to make sure at the end, I mean, I am a strong proponent of working together, both political parties. And so this design forces people to work together. Well, why are we having a government shutdown? Because the Republicans don't want to work together. Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, Democrats have been guilty of it, too, in the past, right? When they've been in the majority. Right. The majority wants to just do what they want to do and pay no attention to anybody else. And I think that's a bad thing. I think we govern better when we govern together. And so, our inability to pass a budget, to do appropriations, even, the thing that the president runs around and calls the big, beautiful bill. Right. That wasn't a budget. That was just simply a process called reconciliation that allows the Republicans to not work with the Democrats, to pass a partisan bill, right? And so now, now they want to do this extension of that partisan bill. And I guess I think I probably reflect the views of a lot of middle America in that I think we're all just kind of tired of political parties not working together. And so for me, what this government shutdown really reflects is it's time to put that nonsense, to bed. People need to start working together. And that means both sides. Right? But what we're seeing in Washington right now is just, inability to do that. And at the end of the day, what are we really talking about? People say, the Democrats are demanding things that the Republicans. Well, what's actually being demanded? I mean, I know what's being demanded. Healthcare tax credits. And why? So that come January, your premiums that you pay for your health insurance don't go up. I mean, I would be hard pressed if we could find anyone in a Republican or a Democratic district that doesn't think that's a good thing. Right. And so, if you sat down, it seems, I guess my point is, it seems like it's pretty easy to compromise here, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Just sit
yeah.
down, extend the government funding so that, hardworking folks are getting paid for the hard work that they do. And then let's make sure that their health insurance bills don't go up in a couple months, right? Let's not give people a Christmas present of higher bills, right? That doesn't make any sense. And so, in summary of what I've said here, I just think the two parties need to work together, and the extent to which this forces them to do so, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, same. And you mentioned extending the premium tax credit. So I do want to go and have you talk about your bill that you introduced this September. What sparked that conversation and why you have so many co-sponsors, like I think 112 now on this bill. And give me some more information about that. What made you introduce your bill?
Well, look, here in the San Joaquin Valley in California, this is a very rural part of the state, and we have been underserved in relation to healthcare for my entire life, right? I mean, we don't have as many doctors as the cities and the coasts have, right? We don't have the same number of clinics and hospitals. We had a county here in my district, Madera County, that just recently had its only hospital close. So if you had a medical emergency or you were having a baby or any other need for a hospital, you had to literally go to a different county to get that service, right? And over 60% of the folks in my district are served in some way by what's called the Medi-Cal program, which is funded by Medicaid,
Yeah.
right? Now, in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, they cut Medicaid funding, slashed it significantly, right? In ways that these services aren't going to be able to be provided to my constituents. And in addition, they failed to extend these premium tax credits to keep people's premiums low. So, what is the impact of that? Well, if you think about it, and it's just like any other business, right? A hospital, fundamentally is a business. And if 60% of their customers no longer have adequate funding
Yeah.
to pay them, then that's going to hurt everybody. Not even just that 60%. It's going to hurt the entire community, because what happens is more hospitals, more clinics close, less doctors find it profitable to have an office open in a rural community, and they close those. And so all of that means longer drives, higher prices, and less healthcare for people that live in my district, right? So on the heels and I opposed it, and I made these points, when the Republicans brought their bill. I even offered that, if they were to amend their bill to not decimate healthcare, that, I would look to vote for it, the Big Beautiful Bill, right? I was willing to be bipartisan and support it if they were willing to make sure that healthcare was protected in my district, where we have worked very hard for the last 25, 30 years, certainly the entire time I was both in the state legislature and Congress. We've worked to, we're trying to build a medical school program here. We're trying to expand nursing schools at our community colleges. We're trying to bring more healthcare professionals into an area that needs them. And now they're doing this thing that's going to set us back decades, right? And I opposed it. I voted no on it. And then I introduced a bill to restore the funding for Medicaid and protect the 60% of my community that's on that program directly. And of course, everyone else that's going to be impacted by it. And I also included in that bill the extension of these tax credits, because it just makes sense. And of course, now, the topic of my bill has become the topic of the entire national dialogue as Democrats and Republicans fight over healthcare. That wasn't necessarily my intention, but my intention was to draw people's attention to the disservice. It's interesting to me that we hear a lot about making America great again. It's been the president's slogan, and many of my Republican colleagues have matching hats that have this slogan on it. But I guess I wonder to myself, I don't like when I call a 1-800 number on, something I'm dealing with, and I sit on the phone for 4 hours waiting for somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
right? Or sometimes you call up and you're trying to get a replacement part for, your dishwasher or something or other, and you sit on the phone for 45 minutes, and then it says press 1 and press 6, and somebody hangs up on you, right? I don't think anybody likes that.
No.
And,
Not at
and-
all.
and- right? I mean, I don't think that's a
Yeah.
controversial statement, but yet Republicans seem to think by making longer lines and less service on my health care, my government, somehow that's making America great again or making my life better. I don't get it. Now, I'm all for the concept. I mean, let's make shorter lines, better health care,
Hmm.
better service, better education. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think we could really build around. But this idea that, like, cutting this and firing that person and making everything more complicated, it just really strikes me as odd that anybody thinks that's making America better. I mean, frankly, if Donald Trump wants to bring jobs back to America, maybe we should ban all these call centers that are all over the world that I sit on hold for 4 hours on. Maybe get rid of those and let's get folks back here help me out. How about that? That sounds like it'd make America great again.
And when it comes to these conversations, it's so important for us to have this dialogue too, because especially with healthcare, I have my sister's an MD and my mom's a nurse, and just the training facilities for doctors and places to go to medical school, and it's we're at a place of needing growth. So I am definitely with you. And for those who are listening, his bill is HR 4849. It's called Protecting Healthcare and Lowering Cost Act of 2025. So just wanted to make sure people could go and look it up. Who is your favorite person to work with across the aisle?
I've become very close and had many discussions, many fruitful and positive discussions with Chairman Westerman of the Natural Resources Committee. He's from Arkansas,
Yeah.
and I like him a great deal, both personally and I've enjoyed our professional relationship. As we've sought to do a couple bills together and work on some opportunities. So. I hope that continues, and I hope to find more allies like him across the aisle, as I spend more time in Congress.
Chairman Westerman just did our podcast like a month ago, so this is like so great. You're right after him, so what a coincidence.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was talking about Fix Our Forests
Yeah,
Act. Yep, the
it's a bill that
bipartisan.
we're working on together.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, yes. Okay, so the last question, a little bit more serious. What is the number one issue your constituents are concerned about?
When people say, "What are the three most important issues in your district?" I always say, "Well, there's water,
Yeah.
there's water, and there's water." And I say that because obviously this is the largest agricultural valley in the world, and there's nothing more important to producing food than water and the availability and the affordability of water. And so, in California, we've got one of the best water systems and one of the best innovations in the world that was built in the 50s and 60s. And, my district, places like San Luis Reservoir, which John F. Kennedy came out and essentially cut the ribbon on. And as a result of that, we've created this incredibly productive, ag valley that can feed so many across the country and throughout the world. But we haven't kept up with it, right? Over the years, as it's become harder to build public infrastructure and reservoirs and canals and the things you need, and as our countries become more divided with, sometimes folks on the environmental side saying, "Oh, we can't build any more dams," and folks on the conservative side of the argument saying we can only build dams and we can't do anything for the environment. And of course, I've always said, well, I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can have a healthy and wonderful environment. I think we can also make some targeted investments in more water storage. Right? We've only grown. I'm 40, I hate to say it, 48 years old this year.
You look good. It's all good.
Thank you. But in my lifetime, we've grown our water supply in California by about 1%, and we've doubled our population, right? and we've more than doubled our production, right? So we've done a lot more with less. But one of my priorities in Congress is we have to do more. And the federal government hasn't made significant investments like they did, almost a half a century ago in California's water infrastructure since that time. And it's long overdue. So, this year I tried to amend the president's big, beautiful bill to add $8 billion for Western water and to make significant investments that would actually, protect our ag economy and our food supply for the next 100 years. I always tell people our country, and this demonstrates how broken our politics are. When I offered that amendment to really solve California and Western water, every Democrat and every Republican voted against it. I was the only I vote in the committee, right? Because people are too busy playing partisan politics. I'm interested in solving problems. There's not a more important issue than water for my constituents. I know it's not the sexiest topic for everybody across the country, but it really is important. And I hope during my time in Congress, I can push the body to make some significant investments again, like they did in the 1950s and 60s, and really solve the problem out here on the West Coast as it relates to water availability and supply.
I love it. I'm sure the people of California and really the country will appreciate you for that. So just thank you again for your time and your passion and the work that you do as a public servant and a member of Congress. It really is important that we have voices like yours represented, and really just there to teach us all about what is going on across our country. We have such a beautiful and diverse country.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's great to see you and visit with you. And let's hope we bring this government shutdown to an end sometime soon. Get our country back on track.
That was my conversation with Congressman Adam Gray, representing California's 13th Congressional District. For more information on Leaders Edge, for more podcasts like this, please go to leadersedge.com.